drop. Drop top, fucking up, cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, looking up over the crock pot.
What's up guys, Ryan from Manscapes. In today's video we have got the Myrmica Ruginodis. So much has changed since I actually updated this. I think it's been 4 or 5 months. A long time, yeah, a long time. Since then we've had the stick insects breed, and we've introduced Rocky, the Asian forest scorpion. The eggs on the geckos have hatched. We've since introduced a green and golden bell frog, which we've called Alfred. There's a praying mantis in there, which we've decided to call Hawkins. So much has changed on this tank, it's absolutely crazy. But what I'll do is I'll roll the footage, but just before I do that, just want to remind you all, normally about 40–50% of people aren't subscribed who watch my videos. So if you aren't yet, remember, drop a sub, it goes a million miles, and then that way at least you're up to date on all my content, and no peer pressure at all. But if you could drop a like, that'd help the algorithms a ton. But as always from me, peace and love, and out! So the first thing we're going to be showing here is Mushy. But this tank, it's gone through leaps and bounds. A lot of changes as well. At one point, I laid the whole floor with moss again. And yes, within a week, the isopods are completely uprooted it all. If you haven't seen, you can see on my Instagram. It's basically when I was doing a big trim maintenance and I added some larger pieces of wood. I also added loads of moss. And see if you can see that cricket. I can guarantee if you go back, you can only see a leg, and I'm amazed how Alfred just snaps on. The Ruginodis themselves, they're doing absolutely brilliant. They actually expanded the nest about 2 or 3 months ago. It wasn't alive and on one of my updates on my channel. But yeah, they really have sort of started to grow, come out in numbers now near summertime. The warmer weather, things like that. It's doing really, really well. I don't know if it was on the dead pieces of dead wood I added in, but we did have a moth in here. I did release it outside. I put in half a melon. It was probably way too much. If I had like, maybe, I don't know, 20% of this size, it probably would have been way, way more significant in terms of the time lapse, but because there was so much, you'll see at the end. It was only 3 days. I didn't want to leave it in there too long, as obviously it'll start to mold off, but they thoroughly enjoyed it when it was in. And this is when I added those pieces of wood. So this is just before the moth shot. Obviously I added them in. I think that's probably where it came from. Maybe it's like a grub was in there or something. I'm not 100% sure, but you know, I didn't add it, so I'm not too sure. Just another time lapse, me cutting the tank down and basically how active it gets overnight. The pieces of wood I added in, the moss got ate off them straight away. And when we turned the lights on, you can see there was just absolute chaos, like literally chaos in this tank. So the liquid feeder had tipped over, you know, there's just isopods everywhere. It was, whatever happened last night, it was chaos. You can see before and after shots of when I trimmed it, and after, a day after, sorry, how it looked. Yeah, so it just grows very fast. This tank, it really does. I have to trim it every single week. Sometimes if I go over, a lot of the plants will start touching the lid and it becomes very twitchy, we'll say. So I do like to make sure that that's all right. The main thing is just around the center hole in the lid, because ultimately the other sides, they can't really get out of there anyway, so I'm not worried they can't get out the corners or anything. It's just mainly that I'll encourage things more to climb on the glass, or try to. I mean, it's acrylic, not glass, but the isopods can't climb on it. A lot of the other things can, so especially like the stick insects and things. What I decided to do was actually have one side with the cucumber, and amazingly the ants loved the cucumber. And I did make a comparison list after this. Thought to myself, I'm going to add things in and see what gets eaten first and what molds off first as well. So I added some sugar snaps on the right side, and then we had the cucumber on the left for the initial test, and obviously they all suddenly went from the cucumber to the sugar snaps. And then I tried different fruit to see what they preferred. And you'll see in a moment when I add those sugar snaps, they do spot it pretty fast, and as you can imagine, the numbers suddenly piled up as soon as I saw them sugar snaps appear. And yes, you guessed it, as soon as those numbers dwindled down, on the cucumber from the ants, the numbers from the isopods increased. So there's a pretty split divide here, and I will show that in a moment, but these ladies are just tucking into the sugar. But I do get all of my sugar snaps from Ant Antics store. But I do want to go back now, because this is only 4 days after the last cut that you've seen. It's going sick at the moment. The plants have created that nice border. I do trim it to that line, so I do have visible, I guess, camera footage of things on that area. Plus it leaves a nice opening for anything to walk through and for me to potentially spot. As you can imagine, with this tank, there's that much vegetation and greenery in here that a lot of the things will be hidden. You know, you're talking 95% of the time. But again, this was 4 days later. You can see the isopods are piling on top of that. Stick insects out at midnight. Sorry for the bad reflections. I added these 2 huge pieces of wood in. I do think it complements the other ones I already added in. I also think that I've got the space to do so. End of the day, everything that's in there is only going to benefit from these pieces of wood going in, and the tank itself is only going to be more diverse if things are inside them pieces of wood. So I am looking forward to seeing, or to see, if there is anything like that in there. I just find it hilarious here when the light goes on. They just scatter and run. I always find it really funny because, you know, the floor will just be covered and then all of a sudden there's just nothing really there. I do make a little list. I added a few things in at one point. So we've got some carrots, some strawberries, pineapple I think we used, banana, cucumber, apple, and a few others. Blueberries, that was the one, blueberries. And it's fair to say cucumber was definitely the preferred choice. I was also seeing which molded off quickest, and that was the strawberry, and the banana went a little bit icky at first. So those two are definitely ones that mold up really quickly. I do end up just taking the strawberry out a little bit later on, but I do make a small list for you so you can see which were the preferred ones in the end, which was the cucumber at number 1, orange at number 2, apple and blueberry at number probably 3. Yeah, so they do really like blueberries. I mean, the isopods love them, but the ants also didn't mind them either. And I do have crickets in this setup because obviously I've got Alfred in there, so I am always adding extra things in here. I cooked a full chicken for my dinner, and then I had, you know, a chicken leg there. So I decided to put it in, and yes, they absolutely loved it. So I'm constantly trying new things. I'm always trying to, you know, see what they actually like. You guys probably also do the same thing. Maybe easily give them a little bit of leftovers for your lunch or whatever you decide to do. But the good thing is with the chicken leg is I don't put anything in it. I just cook it in the oven. So I knew there was no nasties in it, and it, you know, it would have been absolutely fine for them to eat. So yeah, currently on my way to the reptile centre, or setting up for the reptile centre. I have got my beautiful daughter here. She's very, very sleepy right now, and yeah, I'm going to go to this one first. I just need flightless fruit flies today for my baby dart frogs. I will be getting those to feed them. I won't be going to the other reptile centre, which has got a lot more stuff in, because I know I'll end up coming home with something I don't need, so I'll avoid that one altogether. But yeah, I'll see you when we get there. Okay, that was a successful run. We've got some flightless fruit flies and some crickets. I'll add a full tub into the Ruginodis setup for Alfred. I do need to top up the crickets in there because he is starting to eat them all and they're dwindling down in numbers, I noticed the other day. So I'll add some more of those in there and he'll have some little snacks, and hopefully he, you know, we see him out a little bit more hunting, getting ready to eat some more crickets. Literally all I do with the crickets is get the full tub and just sling it straight into the setup. As soon as all the crickets have gone out of it, or if someone maybe stuck under the carton, just take it out, get them out, and then done. And that's, you know, that's as easy as that. First thing they do is run to the vegetation, which is kind of expected. But here we are, the star of the show, Rocky. I got him about a year ago as a tiny juvenile, and you know, to see him to kind of grow to this stage now where I can physically put him in. It was always the plan to add him in this setup, but you know, he's absolutely loving it. Imagine going from that to, you know, a tank this size. You can see that the grub does tear the soil up there. There's actually 4 grubs in here in total, but they do tear the soil up. As you can imagine, once they're moving through, they will tear it. Underground, however, I can also imagine that it would be chaos if they ever, you know, bumped into the ant colony or where they're nesting. I can imagine it would just be chaos, and they, you know, it'd suddenly start to run the other way, we'll say. But the tank now, it is just getting way overgrown. I do have to maintain this, as I've mentioned previously, every single week, because it will get to the point where, you know, it just goes insane like this. But also another reason why it is super important is because the circulation, you can see here where it's more condensated on the glass, there's not enough circulation going around the tank, so it does stop some of that as well. And it's so full at the moment, you can't even see the water or the water area where, you know, Alfred spends a lot of his time, but you can't even see the water area. So, you know, I definitely needed to sort this out. I have so many stick insects in here. Even when you look at the leaves, you can see how many are just like half eaten, or there's just chunks took out of the leaves. I find it hilarious, and I do find it fascinating just watching them. But they are actually doing super good, and I have, you know, literally hundreds of nymphs and smaller little baby stick insects in here. This was a couple of days after I was walking by. I was doing some maintenance in the room, and Rocky was out, so it was really good to see him just out and about doing his thing, because, you know, in the end I just want him to be happy, so it was good to see him mooching around. I was also able to confirm that he is definitely a boy, because when he was younger I wasn't able to, but now, you know, I'm confident that I can call him Rocky. You know, we can keep that name, which is pretty good, because I do like it. I'll show you how I know he is a male as well, but you can see it just on the underside there. If those are more flat, and I'll just quickly freeze frame this. Yes, that there. So if those aren't as curved and they're more flat, then it's a female. If it's the curve like these, then it's a boy. So Rocky is a male. You can see a pregnant isopod here. I did recently feature this on one of my shorts, but you can see all the tiny little babies in the underpouch there, like a little kangaroo or something. It's so cute. There's one of the gecko eggs that's actually hatched. I haven't seen the gecko yet, so I really do hope that he's okay, or you know, she actually, because they're all lay clones of themselves, so it'll be she. But yeah, I really do hope that they're doing okay as well. And Mushy does come out from time to time. Here is one of the more mature stick insects. This is one of the ones that will be laying the eggs and starting the new generation of stick insects in here, but they do help a little bit with maintenance. It's kind of one of the main reasons I added them in. I also think that, you know, they are fascinating and also awesome to watch in here. As this ant's just grooming herself, minding her own business, you see another ant just comes over and starts helping her out. It's really nice to see them interacting, engage with each other in such a natural environment like this as well. Now this is where I was doing some maintenance and chopping all of those plants down. It was a pretty heavy cut. I also added those 2 huge pieces of wood, which you can now see in there. But Before I trim the tank, I always give it a good watering down. That's just so there's not as many things on the tops of the leaves. Everything tends to just kind of hide into the shrub, including the ants. They'll all go down underground, and the isopods as well. Everything kind of just falls below where you're cutting, so it's why I always give it a good watering down beforehand. But this is the final result. I was pretty happy with it for now. I know certain things are a little bit in the way for now, and you know, it looks a little bit scrappy, but in the end it will work out okay. Here is a time lapse. Now what I did is I saved a few of the time lapses until the end. This was before I added all of the wood and certain things in here, but you can see how much life and activity is going on in this tank. Even just looking at the surface of it, or on the right side where that feeder is, you can see all of that movement, you know, all night. And what I did is I thought I'll try and film it on this side as well the next day. I also added a little bit of crested gecko food in on the floor because I made too much for the tubs that I had in for the geckos. So I just poured it onto the actual floor of the substrate. But the reason I like these time lapses, it's just good to see how quick they can demolish things. All I did there was I had a few jelly pots, I put in some fish flakes, and you can just see how quick those fish flakes actually go. The amount of things running through, or like the traffic in this tank, is mental, and it always keeps me on my toes. You know, if I'm putting my hand in to cut something down, no doubt I'll take my hand out and there'll be something on my arm, you know, whether it's an ant, an isopod, a stick insect, there'll be something on there. I made up a little ground up mush. So this was like carrots, flakes, bug bites, mushrooms, all sorts of things mixed together. I make it into like a mush, which I normally make for my isopods and all of my millipedes, but I had some spare and I thought I'll just add it in here so these can eat some as well. But it's not like they go short on food, and these actually eat better than me. And what we'll do is I'll let the time lapse run so you can see, but it was only 2 days, no, 1 day, and all of this was completely gone, and you can see that mound of food there. But I hope you liked the video. Remember to drop a sub if you did. That way you're able to keep up with all of the updates on this colony or the rest of the channel's content anyway. And as well, at the same time, drop a like if you did like the video, and let me know which update you would like next in the comments below. But as always from me, guys, peace and love. I'm out.